First of all, many congratulations to you, sir, for hosting this IPL 2020 against all odds. It happened, and it was a really treat to watch for all of us. So many congratulations on that.
Thank you. It was really a great effort by everyone, and it is something that everyone will remember and cherish throughout their careers and their lives. Yes, it was very special.
So, sir, you mentioned about working with Gujarat Lions in 2015 and 16. That's how you basically started your journey with IPL team. So, can you share a little about how your experience has been working with IPL teams, managing the IPL teams, and working with IPL itself for the past 5 years?
So I started with IPL 2016, and it was by chance this came about, and it was a very different experience in terms of like you were thrown in the deep end, and I was, because it was suddenly, from being someone who was just covering events and struggling to get my next assignment, I was thrown into the deep end. And here there is obviously a lot more pressure, a lot at stake. So every day was a big learning. But the biggest lesson at the time was I learned how to be in a team, in a proper team environment, and just saw how all these cricketers work together as a team. They gelled during those 2 months. And the best part about it was they also went out of their way to make sure that I felt that I was a part of the team, which for a youngster was very, very critical. You learn a lot along the way, and for me at the time it was all about dealing with pressure, different pressures, expectations. I also learned, it is very easy on the outside to sit and criticize a player, when they don't have a good day. But when you're on the inside, you realize the amount of hard work they put in. When you get to spend time with them, you realize that playing is just the tip of the iceberg, but they have to attend net practices. The traveling is another aspect which is very tiring. Then they spend time with the physios, with the masseurs to get their body right, with the physical trainers. So there is a lot that goes behind the match, and you begin to appreciate all that. You begin to respect their times. You begin to respect, the professionalism that they show in every sense, and you do learn a lot about all those aspects. Yes.
Okay. So how is managing as from being a media manager for a team is different from being a media manager of a league? So how are those jobs different from each other?
It is very different because in a team you are handling their day-to-day media activities. Every day I was getting calls, like at least 50-60 calls every day, media wanting different details, wanting different interview requests. And ultimately you also want to portray the team in the best possible way. You want to get interviews done, but at the same time you have to manage the players' time. You have to manage their expectations. You have to manage the fact that they have to prioritize their cricket, their physical workouts, their treatments, and everything above else. So although media is important, you have to fit that into the whole scheme of things, because they ultimately, a player wants to give his best on the field. Everything else is a result of all that, is a consequence of all that. So to get their best on the field, they do a lot of things through the day. Like for example, something as simple as eating right, something as simple as sleeping on time, or something as simple as getting the amount of rest. So you don't want to disturb them during those times. And you do realize at some point that you want to include them, you want to get the best out of the media for the media from them, but you also have to respect their timeline. So accordingly, how you sketch all that out, that is what is the challenge for a team media manager. And to see that one player is not overused or one player is not underutilized. You also want to give some of the youngsters the space who are coming up, because the youngsters need to firstly they need to learn how to deal with the media. They need to learn how to talk very well, and which I think I was very lucky in Gujarat Lions, because the youngsters were very willing to learn in that sense. So I still remember Ishan Kishan was there, and he was only 17 years old, and he would learn as to how to say, what to say. He would also observe some of the senior players. And now all these years later, now he's 21, 22, and I see him speak in the media, and he's impeccable. So those things also you want to get done. So if say I was in the same team as a media manager, I would be very proud of the fact, but I always remember what he was, how eager he was to learn. So then there are senior players who, in a sense, because I was a new media manager, they would teach me like how to, like I remember one of the senior players told me that, we should not say this, we should say that. That will sound a lot better. That will sound a lot more positive, because you want to be positive about your team. So these are the things you learn how to portray. When it comes to the league, it's a different challenge, because there you are dealing with a lot more official commitments in terms of broadcast, because you have to do the presentation ceremonies, other website interviews, you have to do the interviews for the broadcasters. So those are all official ones which are bound by contract. As the team media manager, you're dealing with a lot of the written press as well. So that is the main distinguishing point. And from the league perspective, you are also trying to facilitate the media. Like this time, for example, we could not have media physically. So we were doing everything we were doing our best to get them involved, in a sense that we created those virtual press conferences. So the league role is obviously a bigger role, but I still felt that the demands of a team media manager were more, because you are dealing with the national media who would call you almost every single day. But when it comes to the league, you're dealing with official commitments. So that is very time bound, and that is very that has to be done. So that's a different challenge altogether. That is how I would distinguish it.
Okay. So, sir, from a team media manager perspective, everything that goes online or goes out to the world about your team, that has to go through you. I mean, from on social media or on newspaper or online blogs, it has to go through you, basically, right?
That's right, and you've got to be careful in that way, because even if, say, you are recording something in the dressing room after a victory, and dressing room is a very private space, players may say anything, but it is up to you to ensure that those things are not portrayed. Not because it is wrong as such, but there are some things when it comes to privacy. Like for example, I'll give a simple example. You're at home. You're talking to your family. There's nothing wrong that you all are talking, but there isn't something that you want to put it out, right? So the same comes to a dressing room. It is a personal space, so you've got to be sensitive about all that. So it has to all go through you, because you need to have the sensitivity. And if you're in doubt, then you always consult the coaches and the players. Do you want this out? Should I get this away? Should I not put this up? So you also have to know when to ask for help and guidance as well.
Okay. So does this include the players, I mean, their personal profiles also on social media, or what they are doing with their personal?
No, the personal one is completely their discretion. Sometimes they may ask you for help. Like I remember some of the youngsters would say, I want to tweet something like this. Can you tell me how can I frame it? Or, what will make it sound the best possible way? Sometimes even seniors may ask you, like, I want to tweet something about a victory, or what do you think is a good catch line? It is their discretion to tweet, but they may just ask you in a nice way. Can you tell me I can say this better, or how it can be made more fun? Stuff like that.
Role of a media manager during IPL on a match day and on a non-match day. Basically, while you are on your venue, or you have to travel to all the venues, and how is that like?
So on a non-match day, you're traveling, but if you're in a city, then it is always better you go to a pre-match press conference and just see that things are all right. Have a look at the media facilities, just to get a feel of everything. And on a non-match day, you're planning for the match day. You are in touch with the producers. You take their requests and talk to the teams who they are willing to put out for pre-match interviews, or even during the match, what kind of interviews. So all that you do. And on the match, you execute all that. Get the players for the interviews, get the request done, help out in the presentation ceremony, ensure the press conference is done at the end, ensure that players are there for the press conference presentation, for the other interviews that are lined up. So mainly it is all about getting those interviews together, getting the press conference together, and ensuring everything goes on smoothly. And on non-match day, you're planning for the match day mainly, or traveling. This time there was no travel because we all were in a city each. So
yeah. Yeah, so that brings actually to my next question. How different was working in this IPL 2020 with COVID situations and other comparing it to the previous IPL seasons?
Oh, it was very different because this time there was no travel. So essentially, I unpacked my suitcase in one room, which has never happened before in the IPL. So that was one big difference. But secondly, I would say it was different because we had an inner team which was the most protected bubble, and we could not meet the outer events team, and we had to all communicate virtually. So that was a big thing. We had to maintain social distancing protocols even during interviews. Media wasn't allowed inside the stadium, so we had to do press conferences virtually. So there were different things that happened, but ultimately it was very smooth after a while. The presentation ceremonies looked different. We managed with the least possible people on the field, which is what made it challenging, but at the same time it was fulfilling because after a while we got a hang of it. And then it was executed properly. Everyone got used to it. Players, team officials, teams, everyone were used to these new protocols. We had to maintain social distancing. We had to ensure proper sanitization. So that only added to the challenges, but then ultimately they all, fortunately it all panned out very well.
Okay, yeah, of course it did. I mean, we all saw it and it was amazing to watch. You have worked with in TNPL and IPL, and you have covered international matches as well. So working environment, like how are those different? Like, can you please explain a little bit on that?
So it all is on the size of the tournament. For example, IPL is a much bigger tournament, so there are different challenges. TNPL is a regional tournament, so the challenges were smaller, but it was different because I obviously had a language barrier. And TNPL was a lot more about the youngsters and people wanting the opportunity on a bigger stage. Like I remember seeing T. Natarajan in 2016 and look where he is today. And those are the kind of things that give you a lot of satisfaction because you see someone from that time and coming in, it really inspires you. So TNPL was a lot about in how you learn a lot about the TN culture, like I did. I enjoyed my time over there, and you learn a lot about the media, how things happen. You enjoy the cricket as well, and once the cricket starts, it's all about the game. But yes, IPL, because the profile is a lot bigger, the challenges are bigger. International matches, because I've covered tournaments as a journalist, the challenge is different. It is more rather about our client because I have to deliver videos or articles to my client. So the work environment is different because it all depends on the clients that I have, and the press box environment is obviously something that you get used to because everybody in the media center, after a while, you know everyone. So it is all about those relationships and how you work together.
Okay, yeah. So that brings us to the last section of this session, and basically this is something new that we have start from now. It's sort of a rapid fire question. You like 5 to 6 questions, and they have to be rapid and it should be fire, as they say.
Okay. Yeah. Any time limits?
No, just a couple of seconds. I think that should be.
Okay, cool, perfect. Yeah.
So, who's the funniest player around that you have seen?
Okay, funniest player whom I've worked with would be Andrew Ty. He has a very good sense of humor, and he was really fun to be with. Yeah.
So what would you prefer? You would prefer a off on a normal weekday or less work on a match day?
I would prefer an off on a normal weekday. Match day, why would you want to reduce work?
So what's your favorite sporting venue that you have worked with or you have been to?
That's a tough one, but because it's home, it will be Wankhede Stadium. Just because it's home.
Alright, okay. So, what would you prefer, writing or anchoring?
Anchoring, any day.
Okay. So, one other sport you would like to work in other than cricket?
Formula 1.
Formula 1, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So, one sports personality that you would like to have lunch with?
Okay, I've been fortunate to have had lunch with quite a few cricketers. So let me pick a non-cricketing personal, and it's going to be Abhinav Bindra.
Okay. So last but not the least, the most important question: you would choose Messi or you would choose Ronaldo?
I'm a Ronaldo fan. So for me, it will be Ronaldo. But I love watching Messi as well.
Oh, that brings us to the end of this session. Yeah. So thank you so much for joining. It was it was great learning for me as well, and I'm sure for the viewers as well who were to watch. So thank you so much for joining.
My pleasure, and I wish everyone the very best. And yes, keep going after what you want, and think like a sportsman, most importantly, or think like a sportswoman. They are real champions, and we have to be inspired by them.